Hey, my Legion, how y'all doing today? If you remember, way back in January of last year, I did a video called "Sad News About America's Test Kitchen in Cook's Country," talking about Christopher Kimball being booted off the show, and then and the possible future of those two shows up in the air. And then he did a whole season of episodes. And then that'd be it. And then they didn't know who was going to replace him as host or what was going to happen. Well, since then, first of all, since then what happened was Christopher Kimball formed his own, going his own direction, looking for a TV show. He has the Milk Streak magazine. I had the first premiere issue. I know my friend Joe Muller does too. And I actually did a recipe off that. And it turned out that replacing Christopher Kimball as host would be Bridget Lancaster and Julie Callan Davison as like a joint host on the show. I remember telling Martinez tonight, the chef, and he's like, "Oh no, they're so boring." Yeah, he said they're boring. And I don't know how the show's gonna go. And the episodes were supposed to start premiering in 2017. And apparently my PBS station were playing reruns with Christopher Kimball in them. And I was like, when are they going to start playing these newer shows? And I heard someone comment on one of my videos, maybe it was that one or one of his videos, saying that they missed, that they saw the new test kitchen. I said, I wish they showed on my PBS. And I looked on the guide on my cable, and they're having some big special, so they must be doing like the 900th pledge drive for this year. And I looked on YouTube, and there was indeed probably the very first, I don't know if it was the first, but it said episode 1, season 17, episode 1, America's Test Kitchen, and it was cast iron staples. And I watched it, and it starts off at the beginning, they used to say, like, you'd have, like, introduction, and then, Christopher Kimball and stuff like that, or say who stars in it. They don't do that. They didn't do it. They stopped doing Christopher Kimball. They don't mention him anymore in the credit or anything. They don't mention the two girls in the credit. And they said that today on America's Test Kitchen, then they show what's going to be on the show. They said that girl, that one of the newer segments they had over the last couple of years was the Gadget Guru. And she was going to say they had Gadget Hall of Shame. That wasn't in the episode. That episode was left out. I don't know what happened on that. So that was the cheat right there. I didn't like that. And what did happen was they were talking about perfect skillet steak, and Bridget Lancaster and Julie Collin Davison both came out, and they started doing banter, trying to be funny. And Bridget Lancaster can't do comedy at all. Julie Collin Davison had a little more pizzazz. But I mean, whenever those two are together, they try to do banter back and forth like Christopher Kimball did, because he was such a unique character. He was very good at doing banter back and forth with them. And it just seemed awkward because Bridget just seemed out of her element trying to be like Christopher Kimball, and that was impossible. And then whenever she was doing it seemed like Julie Collin would overcompensate for what she lacked. And it just was very uneven and didn't mesh well at all. Now, I mean, as far as the food and stuff, the food looked good, but she was kept doing like, she was talking about laying in a hammock and going from side to side, trying to get nice and tan. And then she said she didn't develop a fine crust. That was a joke that Christopher Kimball was doing, and it completely flopped. It just didn't work right for her. Now, I do not dislike. I like Bridget Lancaster and Julie Collin. I don't dislike them. It's just that their banter back and forth doesn't work in the show. And I think Christopher Kimball is sorely missed. I miss Chris. I wish he'd come back, but he's got his own project now, and hopefully he's trying to work on a TV show. So I have to keep my eyes open for that. Now, next was they had the equipment corner. Like I said, they said that Gadget Guru was going to do the Hall of Shame for all these kitchen items or gadgets, and that wasn't on the show. I mean, it just went on. I don't understand that at all. Because usually if they don't have time for a show, they want to broadcast another episode. You know what I mean? That's what editing is for. Well, anyways, they go to the equipment quarter with Adam Reed, who's always pretty good at bantering back and forth with Christopher Kimball, and sometimes he outdoes him. And it was about something really weird, paper towel holders. And they were talking about these metallic ones, the stand-up ones, that range from anywhere from $13 to $25, which is crazy. I got this one. I had this a long time ago. They had samples at work of these plastic ones that we started making. And this works just fine. The only difference is, I forgot there wasn't a... I don't know, there wasn't a skin underneath, a little rubber thing, anti-skin thing on there. And we were making those at work. Next time I go back there, see if I can snag one. For this. I forgot about that. And they were giving this away, too. But I don't see them having a problem with giving me one of them. But, I don't know. If I don't get one, I don't get one. No big deal. And that thing was interesting, but it was just crazy. They ranged from anywhere $13 to $25, which is insane. And I never knew they had so many different versions and stuff. And the one they picked was... one that was $25. It had like an arm that would like hug the paper towel, and as you get lower and lower and lower, it would just spring action. It would hold it. That's crazy. This one right here is fine enough, for me, anyways. But I guess that's if you have a lot of money. Now, next thing they have something called a science section. Now, there's nothing wrong with science and stuff like that. Because I remember in chemistry class, the kids were like, we're never going to use this in the real world. There's a lot of chemistry in cooking. A lot of the way things react, and cooking times, and the way you can crust or sear a piece of meat or something like that, all involves cooking and chemistry and stuff. The Maillard reaction, that's all chemistry. Adding different chemicals to, or liquids to like a piece of meat, or putting salt and water to brine. That's all chemistry. Well, anyways, he was doing something I thought was really dumb. He was talking about the heat equivalent in cast iron skillet. He had that, and he had aluminum skillet, and he had them both side by side, and he had his finger in both of them. He said, well, I'm burning my fingers in the name of science. And he said, and he looked at the camera eventually, like halfway through, and said, yeah, don't do this at home. And he was trying to point out that on a flame, it takes a cast iron skillet to heat up 8 times. It's 8 times slower to heat up a cast iron skillet on a flame than it is with aluminum cast iron. It heats up right away. And they said you should put like your cast iron skillet in the oven for like 500 degrees until it heats up all the way. But that was really stupid, putting your fingers in there and see if you burn your that wasn't cool. And then you get a lot of influential kids. They said don't try it at home. There's some kids that are probably going to be trying it with their friends and stuff. You never know when their parents aren't around. You know how kids are these days, especially with all those trolls on the internet, YouTube. They're all kids anyways, and act like kids. And then the last thing was, Julie Collin Davison was interviewing that other guy that was on Science Thing about like cast iron chicken, or how to get a good crispy chicken. And she was a little more, the chemistry clicked somewhat more like Christopher Kimball, because she has a little more pizzazz. And she didn't do a bad job. She's always a little flirty and stuff like that, which, it was okay. She used to be really flirty back in the first days of the opening of Mary's Test Kitchens. But it was just weird. It just didn't quite work as far as the banter and stuff. The food and the segments in the cooking and like equipment corner, or I don't know why they didn't have that gadget Hall of Shame. That was stupid. And if you're supposed to promise, you're supposed to have it in the show. But as is, Christopher Kimball is sorely missed. He really is. The banter just doesn't work. The cooking segments are still well done. but it's definitely lesser of a show. Just the banter is like sometimes kind of cringeworthy. It doesn't work at all. Whereas Christopher Kimball had like this weird quirky style that he used. I mean, he wasn't like, he'd be awfully tough to imitate anyways. Like Bridget Lancaster was trying to be like him and it just didn't work. Julia Collin Davidson was too, but she has a little more pizzazz. She could get away with it a little bit more than Bridget could, you know. But that's my review. I mean, the cooking segments and stuff, and like the equipment corners and stuff are always interesting. I don't think it'll hurt the show because people want to see Christopher Kimball in it. He's not in it anymore. But as far as like everything else, I'd probably give it a 6.5 out of 10. I was going to give it a 7, but since they didn't have that Hall of Fame, it's a 6.5. That was stupid. I mean, if you promise something, have it in there. And and there was plenty of time. It's 22 minutes. I don't know why they didn't broadcast that. And I don't know why my PBS station is showing like old reruns instead of the new episodes. I could have done this review much quicker. Oh well, I'll keep my eye out and see if there's any more episodes like this on YouTube. So that's my thoughts and review of the brand new America's Test Kitchen without Christopher Kimball. I don't know what's going on with Cook's Country. I have to look at that because Cook's Country was always weird. It was always on my main PBS station. They had like a side PBS station called Create. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know if they stopped making a show or not. I may have to look at that too. So until next time, bye please. Take care, my legion. Yeah, baby.